At the University of Lincoln, we recognise that change is coming, and we're preparing our students to lead that change. That means a great student experience underpinned by world-class research. With our students, we're solving global challenges in fields like health, energy, agriculture and climate. So come to an open day and be the change.
Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this live lounge from the University of Lincoln, where we're going to talk about top tips for getting a good degree. My name is Craig Marsh. I'm the head of the College of Business at the University of Lincoln. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague, Libby John. Libby?
Hi, Craig, and hello to our audience. Yes, it really is really nice to be here tonight to talk to you all on this lovely evening and share our thoughts about what a great degree really is and what that means and how to go about getting one. Craig, do you want to tell us a little bit about the College of Business and what you do there?
I thank you, Libby. I should kick off by doing that. So the range of subjects we cover in business, it's pretty diverse, it's pretty broad. And so in our area, we can study anything from accounting, finance, economics, business and finance. You can study marketing, tourism. We also have subjects in logistics, supply chain, human resource management, strategy. So anything that is related to the area of business, both in the private and public sector. Generally speaking, we have a subject that you can study on it. And Libby, I think you have an even broader range of subjects in science, don't you?
Well, we do have a really broad range of sciences here at Lincoln. I'm really pleased to say, following a huge amount of investment in science at Lincoln. So yes, we do everything. If I just run through our subjects, we do chemistry, forensic science, life sciences, a full range of life sciences, pharmacy. We do computer science, engineering, maths and physics. And down in the south of the county, we have a campus at Holbeach where they study food manufacturing. And just north of us here at Lincoln, we have agri-food technology on campus at Riseholme. Our newest addition, however, to the science team is medicine. So, and I'm looking out here, I'm in my office looking out at our fabulous brand new medical school. So yeah, that's a taster of what we do in science, Craig.
Absolutely, and we, as a university, I think we're particularly proud of our colleagues in science and the range of subjects that you offer to our students, and indeed with the wonderful facilities, which I think we're going to come and talk a little bit about a bit later on, Libby. So that's fantastic. And I think one of the things before we get into the heart of our topic is as sort of 17 and 18-year-olds watching, they think, well, how on earth do I choose a career out of that sort of broad range of subjects? And I think we both feel that at this point, it isn't necessarily so much about choosing a career, is it? In certain subjects, you are directed towards science or social science, but actually in any of those subjects, I think you can lead to actually some quite surprising different career choices.
Right, and every degree opens doors that you didn't know were there when you take it, and in fact, doors that we don't even know about yet, because the world, as our video showed, is changing so fast. Yeah, there are so many different opportunities. Obviously, if you want to be a pharmacist, you do have to do a pharmacy degree, but actually doing a chemistry degree doesn't mean you end up as a chemist. There's all sorts of different careers that you could end up in following any of our science degrees. And I'm sure for you too, Craig, a lot of what university is about is acquiring a whole range of skills that allow you to go out into the workplace and shine.
Yeah, very much so. And in business, there are some surprising career choices for our students who tend to study business, not least of which actually starting their own companies and organizations.
Absolutely.
So, with those developing those critical entrepreneurial skills. So I think one of our themes, Liv, isn't it, about the broad range of experiences that a university provides, and not just about the academic qualification.
No.
That's really
I think so. I mean, I think my top tip for choosing an academic subject is you've got to love it.
Yeah.
And as you said, Craig, it's much better to choose something based on that, something you want to study, rather than on being very focused on a single path at the end. But beyond that, there is so much about being at university that we have to offer. And I think one of the things we wanted to pick up is what is a great degree. It's not necessarily getting the top marks in every subject, though that's not a bad idea if you can do it, but it's about picking up on that whole range of experiences and opportunities that a good university offers to their students.
Indeed, and I think we'll come on and start talking about what some of those experiences are that wrap around the getting of that good degree. And as we put into the thread there, if anybody's watching and want to ask either as a question about anything that we're covering, feel free, pop it into the comments, and we'll do our best to answer your questions as we're going through the session. So perhaps maybe we could just start to talk a little bit about that student experience that we bring into the classroom, which is more than just the actual acquisition of a good degree at the end of the study. So, and I know in science there are all sorts of ways that you expand, that you create different learning opportunities for the students as they're studying, aren't they?
Absolutely, Craig. I mean, it's great to see that one of our science students is already listening in. So hi, Brooke. Really nice that you're here today. So Brooke knows what are different kinds of experiences we'd expect a student in science to have. Everything from conversations with lecturers and each other, discussing interesting topics. Lectures, of course, feature, but they're not the main thing we do. Field trips, laboratory practicals, and extra opportunities. I don't know whether Brooke was one of the students who took up the opportunity to help with lambing up at Rise Home this year, for instance. So those kind of extra opportunities that are all around us, we really encourage students to pick up.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's the same in business, Craig.
Absolutely. Just to say, I don't think anybody's ever called me a legend. So well done, Libby. We know you're a legend. Thank you, Brooke. And so, Libby, if I'm looking at choosing a subject in science, and I really want to make the most of those in-curricular activities, how do I know whether a particular subject is going to lead me to have those sorts of experiences, or is it across the board, or is there some way of saying, if you're doing this subject, then this is the kind of experience that you're likely to get?
Well, yes. So we're very clear in our what we say to prospective students about the kinds of experiences they might have. And there's two kinds of experiences. Those we offer within the curriculum, which we have to be super clear about to applicants and students. Those are part of the curriculum. And then there's all the extra stuff that you'll get from being at university, and that might be a bit harder to pick up on if you're looking at the university from the outside. Indeed. But certainly what's in the curriculum, you want to, as I said, pick something you really enjoy, it should be clear then the proportion of lab work you'll get compared to field work. If you're the kind of person who likes to travel, then obviously you'd want to pick a degree in life sciences or geography, where an overseas field trip is offered to students. And so you'll want to dig in a little bit and ask all those questions. If anyone listening now has a particular thing they want to do at university, then do ask us, and we'll let you know.
Absolutely. And Brooke is being very complimentary about the university. And she just said she attended a Russell group before came to Lincoln. It's not up to par with Lincoln. The experience I've had is unbeatable. So it's in a sense it's great. Thank you, Brooke, because obviously Libby and I can talk about this, but it's great to hear from one of our students who's actually experienced the university. And this is unbeatable is a nice way of putting it, I think. So Libby, we both mentioned that part about choosing something that you enjoy, and I know that from our own long experience, that really is if you're good at it as well, that's great. And if I'm a school leaver looking to study science, how do I judge or tell? Would you say what it is that I enjoy doing? Because it's not always necessarily an obvious question. Is it because I'm getting really good grades in something? I mean, is there something that you can talk about in terms of what your personality is, or the sorts of things you get engaged in? How do I judge that?
Well, I think I wouldn't want to pigeonhole people by their personalities. I think if you're doing an A-level in a subject, that gives you a really good taster. But what you've got to bear in mind is that university is a step up from A-level, both in what we expect you to learn, but also how interesting we make it. A-level's about training to pass exams. University is about thinking much more widely about the subject you want to study. And I'm sure that's the same for you, Craig. But if you enjoy it at A-level, there's a really good chance you'll enjoy it at university. So that's one thing. But there are some subjects like computer science. We don't expect you to have studied computer science before you start a computer science degree necessarily. You may have, but you won't have necessarily. And I'm sure that's true for you, Craig. A lot of your students haven't necessarily studied finance before they start university. And you'll just have, it will be something you're interested in. You can see that the careers that progress from there are the sorts of things you think you'd be good at and interested in. And you may have found yourself engaged with computers or gaming and, you know, think that you want to progress it. But I would ask you the same question, Craig, because it's kind of easy for me to understand why science is so fascinating and where you might go. But how would someone decide whether they're going to study economics or finance, for instance, versus management?
But when you look at the range of choices that our students take at A-level, there are some clues that you can get, I think. So, for example, if you want to study one of the more quantitative disciplines, as we call them, sort of economics or finance or accounting, then it's quite likely that you not only have you chosen maths would be an obvious one of course, indeed, you can do an A-level in economics. So what it's showing is your orientation towards a particular way of thinking, actually, and that's quite important. But it may not actually just be in your A-levels. So, for example, to take the idea of business, it may be that you've perhaps had an opportunity to do some work experience in a business, and you're really interested in how the business functions, or perhaps you've seen some really interesting adverts coming through social media, and you're thinking, how do they do that? How do they make sure that people get traction on adverts? So you're looking at things that might capture your interest that aren't even necessarily to do with the subjects that you're studying, and that's one way of deciding. Well, you know what? Actually, perhaps you know somebody who's set up their own business and it's been really successful. Those are the sorts of indicators that you may find show you which direction you want to go in. I think that's part of the question.
Yeah, it'll be things you're curious about and
Indeed.
want to learn more about. So, yeah, you may not be studying it in a formal way, but for me, you might be someone who likes to open the New Scientist and read articles. You know, would be a good sign that you're curious. So yeah, lots of different pointers. And the other thing you can do is come and talk to us. Our open days are here. We will have actual open days soon. We're very excited about that. We would love people to come and ask us about the experience and talk to our students, and find out from our students how it is for them. I think that's really important. And it's lovely to see Brooke's comments. Yes, we absolutely do care about our student experience here at Lincoln. It's something we're very, very keen to promote. So it's great that you've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, and there we go. There's Brooks saying that struggled with science at school, actually, which is, and therefore, but enjoyed it at university, and I'll read that out. Given a foundation, which given a passion I've never expected to have. So there you go. And that comment about not pigeonholing yourself, it's too easy to do, and we see that all the time with our young people, that you're expected to form a particular.
And other people do it for you. Don't let other people pigeonhole you, and don't let other people make these decisions for you. Clearly, you'll want to talk to people you trust. But it's your life.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, we've had one question from Henry. Do you mind if I take that, Libby? It looks like it's relevant.
No, go for it. It looks like one of yours.
So LIBS, Lincoln International Business School, the LIBS 100, and this is one of the experiences that we give to our students that forms part of our extracurricular activities, to the point Libby was making. What the LIBS 100 is an opportunity for you to take a trip abroad to a destination of your choice, which is something that we're now, as Libby mentioned earlier, really looking forward to be able to do again with our next intake. And why do we do that? Well, it isn't just about going and enjoying yourself in a different country, which of course is part of the experience, and back to the enjoyment point. But what it is about gaining those all-important cross-cultural experiences, those experiences of diversity, and for us now, I think, and I know this applies in science as well, Libby, that you're joining a world of work when you graduate, which is increasingly global, it's increasingly networked, and being able to operate in environments which you're unfamiliar to is becoming a really important competence that we want to generate. And that's one of the things that we're offering in LIBS 100, and it's one of the things that you get a chance to do regardless of the degree that you're studying, and in a sense that's our point about not being pigeonholed either, because anyone can benefit from that. So and Libby, do you have the same in terms of some of the this experience of going to places? I'll put it from a business point of view, and experiencing that, but through the field trips and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. It depends on the program students are on, but all our students get opportunities through our Global Opportunities program at the university to do some experience overseas, should they choose to, and it may be part of your curriculum or it might be outside it. But yes, absolutely, traveling and gaining that confidence that you can go to new places and get yourself there and fit it, and it is the most amazing eye-opening experience that we would recommend to anyone. And getting to fit into new cultures, it's definitely something we recommend. And just to sort of say to Adebola, who's saying very interested in learning the tips on getting a great degree, I think this is one of the tips, is if you get these opportunities, and you would if you came to Lincoln, absolutely grab them. Don't pass them by as being a little bit, out of your comfort zone. All the things that are out of your comfort zone virtually will help you to build that bigger picture of who you are and what you can achieve in the future. So I think this really is one of our tips, is to grab these opportunities, whichever program you're on.
Absolutely right, and we do see that correlates directly to student success, doesn't it? That there's the more that the students take those opportunities for themselves, help to almost like craft their own experience at the university. Don't wait for us to teach you. That's not what it's all about anymore. It's about how you take these opportunities and work with us to craft your own experience over the course of your degree. And perhaps if Adebola wants to tell us which MSc you've applied for, then we can perhaps help you a little bit more, actually, in terms of whether it's one of Libby's or one of mine, or perhaps one of the others at the university, because after all, we only represent half the university, don't we?
We do. We forgot to mention that, Craig. We've got a College of Social Science and a College of Arts as well. So we're just half of what there is.
Indeed, but we're both fully supportive of our colleagues who are supporting the university. So Libby, top tips for the degree. I mean, but we probably ought to mention, because obviously one of the questions is, how do I get a good degree? So it's about the sort of support that we put around the learning process at the University of Lincoln. I mean, that's one of the things that we're really keen on, isn't it? Which is about so things like you submit an assessment, and it isn't just about the mark you get for it, but it's how you learn from that assessment and the feedback that you get from it. And I think that's common in both of our colleges, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's one of those things that we talked about, didn't we, Craig? It's a key tip is making yourself open and receptive to critical appraisal, supportive critical appraisal, and it's something you will get in your workplace when you leave university. Your boss will say, I want you to do things differently, or have you thought of doing it this way? And so it is really important that you learn to accept and read the suggestions that our colleagues will make. I mean, they'll be positive, they'll be there to help you get to the next level, but it's really important you take stuff on board and discuss it if you don't understand it. I mean, I'd say that's another thing, is never sit quietly wondering why you've got a particular result, or just come and talk to us, because we want to hear from students and we want to help them. That's why we're here.
And all of our colleagues, I think, share that passion. It's something that we talk about at the university as being one community. It's often, I think, at some universities there's perceived quite a lot of distance between the faculty and students and support staff and students, and that's not at all the case at Lincoln. We do feel like we're one family here, and hopefully our students will always feel that we're really approachable on any question. It's often the cliche that the only stupid question is the one not asked. So as Libby says, one of the key tips is, if there's something you've not understood about what you've studied, about the feedback that you've had, find somebody to ask about that, and we will do our utmost to help you in that service of continuous improvement, right?
It is, and it is tough. I mean, as Brooke has said, it's about emotional resilience. We're all of us a little bit you know, we want to get things right, don't we? But sometimes we can make things even better if we pay attention. Yeah, so really, and every student here has a personal tutor. And that's another source of support, advice, encouragement, and someone you can turn to, both when things are going well, but if you've got a difficulty, that's what they're here for. I notice Ellie's asked a question about work placement and good company connections, which is great to see. I don't know if you want to kick off on that one, Craig. It's
well, indeed,
one of the questions we were hoping would come up, really.
Absolutely right. I mean, so we don't have to ask these questions because our listeners are asking them for us. So indeed, this is something that I think infiltrates all of our degrees. I mean, you would expect it in the College of Business, of course, that all of those degrees have close relationships with business and industry. And there's a couple of ways that we do that, Ellie. I think that one of them is indeed to have those extracurricular work placements where you can go and do a piece of work inside an organization as part of your studies, and you can do that on any of our degrees. In some of these cases, you can do that as part of your degree. So, for example, we have consulting projects that you can do, and often these are with local or regional businesses who are really keen to have our students working in them. Actually, for us, in business, one of the really big projects that you can do is the professional practice year. So you can you can do your study for 4 years instead of 3. So in your third year, you do a full year in business. You don't pay fees for it. We give you a tutor, as Libby was saying a little earlier, and you will do a real project. All of these are real projects. You're not just acting as an office assistant. And when students come back after their full year work placement, it's often the case that the companies come to us and say, well, please have them apply to us at the end of their degree because we want them to work for us full time. It is a fantastic, and it's really life changing. The students come back really more mature. They've got all that real life experience. So there are many ways we offer it. I could probably talk a bit more, but Libby, I mean, it's not just about business. I mean, this is something that's crucial for our scientists as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 2 placement officers in the College of Science, and their job is to go out and find connections with companies, so that for all sorts of reasons, but one of the reasons is for full year placements, as Craig explained, where you can take a year out and go on a placement. In our M-Chem program, you can have a placement at the end after your 3 years. That's part of the program. But they also set up summer placements. So sometimes students don't want to take a whole year, but we arrange for a placement to cover the period of the summer holiday. Well, it's not a holiday because you're on a placement. And we also have some modules. For instance, there's a module in our geography program which has a placement embedded in it where students work with an employer during that module. Yes, and do we have any good company connections? Absolutely. I'm sitting in a building shared with Siemens Energy, a world-known engineering company. And I just got a bit of a list here of some of the places our students have gone out on placements recently. I won't read it out because it's too long, but lots of different hospitals and NHS trusts for our biomedical science students, Procter & Gamble, IBM for computer science students, STFC, which is the Science and Technology Facilities Council for computer science. There's one who's been at West Ham United. So, the list is very, very long. So I won't bore you all with it. But yes, we love getting our students out on placements. And as Craig said, they always benefit. Students come back so positive about that year away. They really, really do. Or even a short summer one, or even one embedded in a module. It's so many of them go on to get jobs and find the placements completely eye-opening. They really appreciate after the placement about those skills that we're trying to help them to develop, the not necessarily the core discipline skills, but the other skills about working with people, being creative, leadership, leading upwards, as well as leading teams that work for you, all those sorts of things. They get it after they've been on a placement.
Yeah, they certainly do. They certainly. I would say that I think, for almost regardless of the degree that you're studying at Lincoln, we put that in top priority, that to get that really practical experience. One of the things that I've been particularly proud of over the last 2 or 3 years is that Lincoln is now gaining attention from some really big international companies that you wouldn't necessarily expect for a regional university like ours. And I'll take PricewaterhouseCoopers as an example of that. So one of my students this year, that PricewaterhouseCoopers came to do a presentation. We have a lot of presentations from companies. We have careers fairs, we have careers weeks where they'll come and talk about their organizations, and you can come and have your discussion with them about what that entails. We had PricewaterhouseCoopers came to the college. One of our students got a placement there during lockdown. Actually, she studied in PwC in London. She did a work placement there, and of course she then went through the graduate program, a selection program with them, and she's now about to start work at PwC in London. And for me, that's exemplifies the increasing numbers of opportunities that we're getting, not just in our region, but also in some of these really big national and international organizations that now know just how brilliant our Lincoln graduates are. And I love that story. It's just one of many. The other thing that, of course, we also do, Libby, we've got a great sort of an entrepreneurship and innovation sort of theme at Lincoln, haven't we, as well, where we have an incubator on site. You've got the Bull Centre and attached to Science with some fantastic small businesses there in the area of innovation. So does that provide opportunities for students as well? Is that somewhere that I know I've got students who've actually started businesses around here? So.
Yeah, so this is building the science infrastructure in Lincoln, really, but Craig just referred to the Lincoln Science and Innovation Park, which is expanding as we speak. But yes, there are a number of companies there that both hire our graduates and offer placements to our students. So it's a really great relationship we have with those businesses. And I know some of the expanding businesses moving on to that part will be hiring our students in ever greater numbers in the future. So that's worked fabulously for Lincoln and for us and for our students. It's a really great opportunity. And as Craig says, they're very innovative, interesting businesses doing things you wouldn't have thought of, really changing the world. And our graduates are getting in there and helping to make those changes.
Indeed.
It's fabulous.
They do that before they even graduate. So one of the programs that we've been running for a while now is something called the Challenge 4.0 program. The idea is problem-based learning, and that's something that applies really to regardless of the subject. And this is a cross-disciplinary process. So what happens is businesses come to us with problems that they want solving, particularly in the area of what we call Industry 4.0. So this is the advent of new technology, which is very much in the interests of your college, Libby, but also in terms of some of the business aspects of that. So they'll bring a challenge in, and we put a group of students together who will work on resolving that challenge for them. And of course, what that's doing is giving them that hands-on experience. It's applying the knowledge they gain on the subject to a real-life problem, but solving something that is real for those businesses, and they can then take that away, which makes a great connection for the students as well. So that's something also that we do a lot of.
And the other thing about those, they're fabulous real-world challenges, but students work with people they've never worked with before. And that, again, is a real-world skill. When you're employed, you don't necessarily get to pick your team, and you will have to work with people and communicate with people with different skills than you that might speak a slightly different language. And when that works, it's so exciting and so buzzy. And to be able to say to an employer that you've been in one of those projects and have achieved an outcome with a group of people, that's very impressive for them. And in fact, it's something we put more and more into our degree programs to make sure that Craig describes something that's extracurricular, but often we put group projects and interdisciplinary group projects into your curriculum as well, because we think it's really important for you to learn to work in teams, talk and lead and develop those interdisciplinary skills.
Totally. So we have our fashion students who put on a fashion show, and they do it in a local hotel. That's part of their assessments, as you say, Libby. That's part of curriculum that they do that. So what are they learning from putting on a fashion show, apart from being very fashionable and like me? What they are able to do is to put a project together in relatively short timescales, collaborate on that, potentially work with students that they've not worked before, do a display, have to communicate that to an audience. And these are all the skills that employers are looking for, aren't they? So there's what we call generic or transferable skills. They're not relevant necessarily to your particular discipline, but they're certainly relevant to a range of things that jobs do, that you have to, that demands in the
and that employers want. You know, when I talk to employers of science graduates, they're looking for, in addition to discipline knowledge, they're looking for evidence of creativity. I mean, you know, that's so important. It's about problem solving. We don't necessarily think of it in the context of science and engineering. It's absolutely crucial. So creativity, interdisciplinarity, good communication skills, all these things are so important to the futures of the companies around us.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of other questions come in. Should we just take those at the So we had one from Henry, which is coming back to our LIBS 100, which is something that we are indeed very proud of. So Henry's asked, when will the LIBS 100 chips applications be open? So that'll be in the autumn, Henry. So we'll start that next year. Now, obviously, at the moment, the uncertainty around that is indeed about international travel, and you'd be very familiar with that problem right now. So we always have to put a bit of a qualification on that just now, but it is my full intention that we'll be able to start offering those again in the autumn. If you're here in the autumn, if you're starting to study with us, so that'll be the really, I think, hoping to open those up again, subject, of course, to travel restrictions that we know that there's not much we can do about that, but that's certainly our intention in the autumn. So thanks for the question, Henry. Just tabbing down here, a couple coming related to business. So I'll just pick those up, Liv, if you don't mind. So we've got another one from Henry. Can you learn another language? Well, Henry, that's a good question. We actually have in the business school a department of languages, so we do consider that as several really popular languages you can study, to Libby's point earlier, as an extracurricular item as part of your degree. So if you're coming here and you're thinking, you know what, actually I'd really like to work in Spain, I'd like to get some basics of the language there, you can take Spanish lessons around your degree here in the College of Business, which is something that's also open to your students as well. It just happens to sit in the College of Business, Louis.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to go on to talk about how we encourage our students you mentioned this earlier, we don't see a big gap between our colleagues and the students we teach, and we are very keen that students are engaged. We had a project here called Students as Producer, which was absolutely sector leading about getting students involved in everything we do at the university, and we're really keen to get students thinking about ways of doing things better. And a recent example in my college was students in geography over lockdown were feeling that they weren't learning as much as they normally would about what was going on around them in the school, and so they set up a scheme called the Academic Geography Experience Scheme, and they got to work with individual staff members on their research projects, and both staff and students have loved it. So, it's an example where if a student comes to us with a good idea, we say, yes, let's do more of that. I know in the School of Life Sciences, which is Brooks School, there's a summer studentship scheme, so students can apply to do summer projects in our laboratories or virtually if it's not safe to be in laboratories. So these sorts of things we really want to promote at Lincoln. We love students getting engaged. We're quite proud of the research we do at Lincoln, but we don't see that as not about students. We see it as very much part of what we offer students here. And I'm sure that's the same for you and your stuff.
Very much so. I note that Adebola has mentioned that. Thanks, Adebola. You mentioned that you're applying for MSc Governance, which is really good to hear. And actually, that's quite a good example, I think, of what Libby's talking about. Because one of the things that you come and study something like governance. I mean, obviously, there's a great deal about the theory of governance. That one of the reasons why we launched this MSc 3 or 4 years ago is that if you're not a certified director, then, and you're running an organization, or you're aspiring to, then there's not much training around to certify the fact you're actually good at it. So obviously there's some theoretical aspects to that, but one of the things that we'll be doing with you on that program, Adebola, assuming that you're successful, is exposing you to people who do governance. So both in terms of the technical aspects of it, like people who are on audit committees and so forth, but also those who are in director positions, who can come and talk about the real life experience of governance. And so it's important to realize that people will come to talk to you who are in those senior roles and who can share those experiences with you. So it's another way that we bring that interaction together between the world of work and the world of study. It's a really good example of a program that's really inbuilt into the study that you do. And when you get to your dissertation, it is entirely likely, to Libby's point earlier, that actually you'll be doing some research which will in fact progress our knowledge in the area of governance. So as a student, you can be contributing to our research agenda and working with faculty, of course, who are experts in that area. So it's this integration between your degree, the applied nature of it, and the world of work, which really does infiltrate all of our programs. So Adebola, thank you for that, and very good luck with your application. So Libby, I know we also, coming back to this all important question, do I get a job at the end of this? Well, I think we've talked about some of those ways that we create those experiences, but I think we also provide practical help, don't we, in terms of that job search, if you like, in terms of support for, I know you don't just mention our careers and employability module, where all of our undergraduate students now in their first year get the chance to go through an assessment centre, which is run by a company. So it's as close as possible to that actually quite terrifying experience that many of our undergraduates have to go through when they're applying, particularly for big companies. So a lot of support around just the process of going out and getting a job. You and I talked about the importance of networking, for example. So Libby, same in science, right? I mean, you do that as well.
Absolutely, there is so much support out there for moving on in your career. I mean, we hate to see our students go, because we actually quite like them, but they do go and they go on to great things, and we're very, very proud of them when they do, and we give them every support we can to get there. Yeah, we've got a great careers team, but there'll also be a lot of support from our academic colleagues as well to take that next step. And one of the things there, I think that, again, going to what this talks about, it's about grabbing the opportunities. Not everyone takes those fabulous opportunities, and they think in the first year, oh, it's a long way off. But actually, those 3 years go incredibly quickly, and you can collect and collate a lot of good skills and experience and knowledge along the way that isn't just for marks in your curriculum. And in fact, all our students can sign up for something called the Lincoln Award, which helps them to gather together all that extracurricular experience and put it into one place, and that Lincoln Award is there for an employer to see. But more importantly, it helps the students understand how the things, maybe they have a volunteering job, it helps them to understand how that job is contributing to the skills they're picking up, or it might not be a volunteer job, they might work in a local pub or cafe, they're still learning skills, and it's about identifying them and helping them pull together along with all the other things we do, and the other opportunities in a university. For instance, going to visiting speakers. We have a wonderful inaugural professorial lecture series. It never hurts to go to one of those. You always will learn something. And again, it can be a tick on your Lincoln Awards. So many opportunities you get from being at university that will all help on that moving forwards in your career. Yeah. Now, Henry's asked a question that I think is a good one for Craig, if that's all right, Craig, because we do have students set up their own business, but you're head of the business school.
Well, indeed. Well, increasingly, actually, I think that's one of the trends that we're seeing is that more and more students, in fact, are looking at this as a serious option. And indeed, one of the ways that we assist, of course, is we actually have our own incubator on site, and that really does assist, because it puts you in very close contact with those who have probably just recently graduated themselves. And I can think of half a dozen of our alumni who are now running businesses just down the road here on campus. So that close contact with people who are indeed setting up their own businesses is crucial. We have a degree that builds entrepreneurship into it. We're doing things like engaging students with the Institute of Directors next year. So it'll be something called the £10 challenge, where we give you £10 and see what you can make of it. We're doing things like giving you familiarity. We now have Bloomberg on site, which is ability to get sort of real-time stock market data, which, if you're running your own business, actually is crucial to understand how finance works. We actually provide mentorship to students. So people who are in business in our local area who are keen to work with students to mentor them through that. So if you're keen to start your own business, what we can provide you is with somebody who has already done that, who can mentor you through the process. So it's partly about, again, some of those extracurricular things that are around you, actually, in terms of what is actually a pretty innovative and entrepreneurial environment here at Lincoln, but also some of the direct support and advice and development of skills that we can provide you for that. And we have, I think the other thing that's perhaps just worth mentioning, Liv, is that many of our faculty have backgrounds in industry and business. They bring that combination of real world experience to the classroom, so that they have their own entrepreneurial skills that they can work with, as you said, as personal tutors with students who wish to take that route. So it's something that we're very keen on growing and promoting, the students who wish to set themselves up.
Absolutely, and of course, it's not just students who study business who go on to set up businesses as well, and so all students would be supported in that, and we'd strongly encourage it. Yes.
Indeed. So I think perhaps one of the things that we've touched on a few times there, Libby, which is about, and for me, it's really important to underline that what we do in all of our degrees is that we're allowing students to develop those all important. We can talk about leadership, but it's about the ability to develop your networks. It's about the ability to work in teams. It's the ability to develop organization skills and creativity. Now, I have a personal view that creativity is one of the most crucial skills that businesses have. But creativity and science, Libby, do those two things go together? I'd just be curious.
Absolutely. Science is about solving problems. You don't get anywhere in science unless you can think of new ways of doing things. It might be applying established techniques in a new context, for example. But yes, it's all about creativity. We ran a session recently with successful women engineers. It was a live lounge like this on International Women in Engineering Day, and every one of them mentioned the role of innovation or creativity in their success so far. So absolutely, you've got to be able to think of new ways of doing things, and in difficult and it's about problem solving, really, and that does require a lot of creativity. Doesn't always mean those sorts of flashbulb moments. It's not always an apple falling from a tree, like Newton is supposed to have had his great idea, but it is about having creative and novel ideas, and often they happen when you're working with other people. So it's about opening your mind to other people's thoughts and ideas, and then suddenly you'll see a new way of doing something. Absolutely important in science as well.
That's a great point, actually, and hopefully our listeners will have understood the varying ways that we give students those opportunities to come into contact with new ideas, new people. Yeah. And that you're quite right. That's often the spark of new. I think this was the cliche sort of 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
And actually, when you're doing your experiment in the lab, you might not feel super creative because you've got to do the repetitions, you've got to do it right, you've got to follow the protocol. But to have got to that point, someone would have had to have a creative thought to make it worth doing. Yeah, absolutely.
So, our topic was top tips for getting a good degree, and I wonder if we should just talk about the academic part of that.
Exactly what I was going to say, Craig. We've forgotten. Yeah, there is a lot of. You have to work hard as well.
There is a bit of that, isn't there? And one of the things we pride ourselves at Lincoln is having high academic standards. So I think, what was it? President Kennedy said, we're going to the moon not because it's easy, but because it's hard. And actually, there's no there's no easy track to this, and I think it would be remiss of us to have our listeners think that this is an easy ask, because I think when you've been around a bit, nothing in life that is worth having is easy, but it can be fulfilling, it can be engaging, it can be really, really enjoyable. But ultimately, students going to have to knuckle down and actually, pass some assessments here, aren't they, to get the good degree?
Yes, and in science, that does mean you're going to have to learn stuff. But if you've picked the right program, if it's a program, something you're passionate about and love, that will be part of the joy, is learning about the subject. So, that's why it's so important. You're going to spend an awful lot of time doing the thing you've chosen to do at university. So make sure it's something that you really want to do, is what I would say.
Indeed. Otherwise, it will become a chore. And we know that to some extent, students can switch. If we all make wrong choices, and you can arrive at Lincoln and say, actually, the studies I've just chosen, I'd like to move. So we give students opportunities to move around to some extent, don't we? It's not always possible, but certainly some degrees.
No. So with certain subjects, there may be particular prerequisites, but I would point out that in science, we have an excellent foundation year, and the staff in there are experts at getting people up to the level where they can jump into the first year, whatever their background. So the bridges aren't necessarily burnt by not having chosen the right A-levels if you've got a passion that can take you through that extra year and on into the degree programme. So that's something that we're very proud of, actually, our foundation year. There's such great teachers and supporters.
Absolutely. We're still getting questions, actually, and Raoul's asked an interesting one. And I think particularly relevant to your college, I think, Libby. So Raoul's asked, due to the limit of practical experience students have got this year due to the pandemic, what would you recommend to increase our practical experience of the pandemic situation is better in October? So I think we've done a lot, haven't we, to replace that practical experience when it simply wasn't possible. I mean, it hasn't stopped entirely, I think, and this is certainly a science thing, isn't it, Libby?
Yes, it's particularly in science and in some of the art subjects, of course, as well. So do take any opportunity. I see Raoul has a picture of a lizard, so that's very cool. So do take any opportunities you're offered. I don't know whether you're a student here or elsewhere, or whether you're still in a college or school. But we do all understand how difficult this pandemic has been. At Lincoln this year, for example, and I don't know whether you're one of our students, we ran the Festival of Learning after it quite recently. It's still ongoing, actually, to allow us to offer some of those practical experiences to students that they might have otherwise got during some of the lockdown periods. But actually, we've worked really hard to ensure our students get as much practical as they can, Craig, and my colleagues have been fabulous at delivering that, but it's just been all spread out in labs, and I would say what students have missed more than anything is being able to work together in teams, and that's what we'll really try and get them doing as soon as we can.
Indeed. I've been watching with admiration about how creative your colleagues have been in creating those online experiences to replace.
They have, you can manage a chemistry experiment from far away. It's not quite the same as being in the room, but really close. And you can press the buttons virtually if you've got the right person there. Raoul, you have been there. So hopefully you were able to join in some of the Festival of Learning activities and go on the field trips, like the Wildflower ID field trip that we ran. And if so, I really hope you enjoyed them.
Absolutely. And actually, in business terms, I think the way that we've addressed that is by making sure. So actually, some of our students have still done placements, albeit virtually. I mean, they've been been running virtual placements, and they've been able to do that. In fact, the PwC example gave the student actually did a virtual placement with them. So it hasn't completely cut off those practical experiences. And indeed, of course, I think one of the things the world has learned is actually it is possible to continue to work virtually. So I think our students have also been learning some of those skills about how to operate when you're not actually physically present. And that has to be something that will be beneficial to anybody who goes into any organisation these days. I'm afraid that we're all used to that now.
Yes, and we've
Yes.
all had to be imaginative and think of new ways of doing things, haven't we?
Yep,
Which was
indeed.
really hard.
Indeed, we have. So I suppose we perhaps should start to draw things a little to a close. Libby, we've been chatting away here. Probably the one thing that there may be a couple of things we've not touched on, but certainly I think the environments that students study here at Lincoln. It's quite. I wouldn't say it's unique, but it's certainly distinctive, isn't it? It's just, and perhaps people haven't had the chance to come and see this yet. And as Libby said, we are starting open days again, so you can come and see. It's a beautiful city. We're right in the centre of that city. It's a relatively small, self-contained campus, and for me, it really does represent that sort of one community feel that we have here. It does feel like a sort of quite universities are often very big places, but it doesn't feel like that at Lincoln, does it? You and I both experienced it.
No, and one of the advantages we have is we're right in the middle of the city, as you say, Craig, which is great. You don't need to get a bus to go out for a night, but also all our student accommodation is around us. So those students who live in our accommodation are very close to us, and don't need to get up terribly early to get to our early morning classes. And thank you, Brooke. Yeah, we have, because we've recently started delivering science at Lincoln, we have lots of new science facilities that are very modern, they're cutting edge, and our students are part of using them. So we've just, as I say, I'm just looking out at our fabulous new medical school, which will have a new library in. It's not just for medical students. So Brooke and Raoul, your library will be in the new medical school. The books are going in next week. And all the facilities in there. We're very keen on providing study spaces that students want to work in. And I went over to that new medical school building just a few days after it had opened, and it was already full of students. They discovered that there were great workspaces in there where they could work in groups and study together. So that's one of the things that all our students, whether it's business or science or from wherever, can really enjoy those spaces that we create.
And it's not. I mean, it's obviously important for the welfare and well-being of our students and their state of mind, and those things all contribute to getting a good degree, don't they? I mean, if you're comfortable in your environment and you're in a nice place and you're in a safe place, and you know that you're not having to worry about your accommodation, how far it is from campus, and where you can study, and all of those things. That means actually it's going to increase the chances of you getting a good degree, which is our topic. So I think there's a practical outcome from that as well, isn't there, Libby?
Yes, we very much hope so, and our students tell us that. Yes, there are lots of practicalities about being in our kind of campus university that we think make life easier for students, and that's why we do it. We design things very carefully with our students in mind.
Absolutely right. And there's Brooke's comments about the staff being supportive. It would be remiss of us not to mention the fact, and we've touched on it a few times, but just what an incredibly supportive community we have here, both academics and our professional services colleagues, whether that's library services, well-being, whether that's your students' administrative support. We are oriented towards providing that experience with the students. So thank you, Brooke, because that is indeed something that we spend a lot of time talking about at SLT, don't we? At the leadership team, don't we, Livia? So.
We do, yes, we have really dedicated first-class teams in our professional services. I'm in awe, actually, of what they deliver and how they work in our city. So we're not a little island in the middle of the city. They reach out and work with services in the city to provide that all-round environment for our students.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So good. So Libya, I think we're out of questions, and I just wondered if there's anything else that you wanted to add before we sum up and allow people to return to their daily lives.
I've just noticed a comment from Paul. Paul, please get in touch with one of us, and we'll work on that with you. So ljohn@lincoln.ac.uk or cmarsh, same ending, and we'll absolutely help out with that.
Yeah, totally. It's we're always dealing with these issues. It's not that these issues don't come up. It's that we want to make sure that they get taken care of. And we as Libby mentioned earlier, we're all very conscious of the really challenging experience that our students have been through over the last 12 to 15 months or so. So we're there to support and solve those problems whenever. Just contact either of us.
Please
Thanks.
do.
Thanks, Paul. Great. Well, I think that's about it. Hopefully, that's given everyone a bit of a flavour for how to get a good degree at the University of Lincoln. And Libby, it's been a pleasure talking to you about it as always.
Well, thanks, Craig. Yes, it's been a real pleasure talking with you too, and with all our audience comments. Thank you for being here. It's been really good to see your comments.
Absolutely, and thank you for those of you who have submitted their questions and comments, and please do follow up with us. We, because it goes out on Facebook and YouTube, we can continue to take those comments and questions. They will find their way to us if you put a question in after we've closed the live feed. So, we also have, if you're interested in applying to us, we can pop into the chat the email address for our admissions. There, do get in touch with us. And one of our colleagues will happily get back to you pretty quickly about that. So there we go. Those are our admissions emails and telephone numbers to finish off with. So
and Rolls asked a question about Chris Packham.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether the talk will be either. Chris Packham's coming to visit us in a few weeks' time. We're very excited. So Rolls, send me a little email and we'll make sure you get the answer. But thank you for signing up. That's exciting.
We're all one of our visiting profs is always great value, is Chris.
Yeah.
So, all right, good. Well, we'll leave it there, Libby, and draw things to a close. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, and thank you everybody who's taken their time to join us today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Craig.